Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again, looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So by now, you've probably heard of the perfidious, unprovoked attack by Hamas terrorists into Israel and its launching of over 2,000 rockets indiscriminately into Israel. Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, southern Israel, rocket attacks, killing innocent women and children, and they just don't care. Hamas and these Palestinian terrorists have never, ever made a distinction between innocent civilians and combatants. And why do I bring this up in the context of social justice idiocy, its tyranny and its delusions? Because these social justice warriors think that Israel is some white colonialist enterprise and picking on these poor Palestinians. They could not be more wrong. And no, Hamas, is certainly not seeking peace with Israel or some reasonable accommodation. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Its constitution calls for the utter destruction of Israel. It's Article 13. Peaceful solutions are in contradiction to the principles of Islamic resistance movement, right? In contradiction to the Islamic resistance movement. Yeah, peaceful solutions. No, wants the utter destruction of Israel. And yeah, you caught that Islamic piece at the end? Article 7 from its constitution. Religious hatred of Jews, not Israel, is expressed by a hadith, a saying. These sayings are considered authoritative sayings and practices by the great prophet Muhammad. That's right. The day of judgment will not come about until Muslims fight the Jews, kill Jews, when the Jews will hide behind stones and trees. The further hadith goes on by saying they will whisper to the gallant soldiers for Islam, come over here, there's Jews, come kill them. That's right. This is something as horrific from a Stephen King novel. But no, this is Islam, the religion of peace. So Saturday morning, rocket attacks, a coordinated invasion, terrorist attack, multiple militant Palestinian groups against nearby cities, civilian settlements, and a border crossing. Later in the evening, launched more rocket attacks. Armed terrorists infiltrated by land, sea, and air via paragliders. And dozens of people reportedly being held as captives, which you can do with soldiers, and civilians as hostages. That's against international laws of war. More than 200 Israelis have been killed. Over 1,500 or above 1,500 wounded, and undoubtedly that number is going to climb. Well, Israel, under Netanyahu, which he is a rock star, he is a former commando. This guy, he lost his brother at the raid of Entebbe, where, Muslims were separating Jewish passengers from the other passengers so they could summarily execute them in a brilliant anti-terrorist operation, rescued those hostages. Well, Netanyahu was also a commander. This guy knows how to fight, and he's taking the gloves off. He's clearing civilian areas of these Muslim invaders, the terrorist invaders, and he has committed to turning the Hamas locations into islands of ruin. Great. He's warned the residents of Gaza to leave because we will operate forcefully everywhere. Yes, and he has advised Hamas, those hostages and those captives, you better treat them well because we will hold you responsible as individuals. And Israel does exactly that. There was a famous Sword of Gideon operation, those terrorist thugs at the Munich Olympics. Golda Meir sent out Mossad agents to track these guys down and kill them like the dirty dogs they were, and they did. Outstanding. So no, not empty rhetoric on Israel's side, and it is going to take control of Gaza, and that's what needs to happen. It needs to assert martial law in the Gaza Strip and watch West Bank. See what happens there, and it might be necessary. There is no making peace as long as, these militant Islam is the guiding ideology of both Palestinian territories, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. It is awful. I think it was Golda Meir who said, peace will come when these Arabs love their children more than they hate us, Israelis, and Jews as it happens. And they don't. Palestinian schools teaching this militant hatred of Jews. Cartoons to Palestinian children are teaching them to kill Jews, that Jews are the enemies of Islam and them. It's a lie. And suicide bombers, strapping suicide vests onto children. Suicide bombers, the poor mothers, they lost their wayward child. No, they dance in the streets. Their son or daughter, child, just killed themselves as well as innocent Jewish civilians, and they dance in the fucking streets. And the community, after it finishes dancing in the streets, puts posters up to these fiends, these monsters, moral monsters, and international aid dollars. The millions of dollars to help those poor, starving, suffering Palestinians, that money gets funneled into the families of these terrorists. Yes, that actually happens. It is a horror show, and Islam is fascism and socialist in social garb, right? Social, religious clothing, right? It is awful. Islam is a curse visited upon humanity, and the poor Palestinian and Arab children being raised under this ideology of hate and violence. Anyways, thank you so much for your time and attention. And I explore Islam at great depth in my book and this whole Palestinian situation. You have been lied to, certainly not by me. So thank you so much for your time and attention. Please do drop a thumbs up. And yes, check out that book. I promise you, you will be impressed. Not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues could not be more important. And I don't lie to you. Thanks so much for your time and attention now. Bye-bye.